and welcome to day 4 of the Northern Ireland Travel News Virtual Forum, Kickstart the Recovery in association with Jet2holidays. Over the last few days, we've tried to cover as many topics as possible, most of the major issues that have affected the travel industry in the last year, with contributions from operators, industry bodies and travel agents. Today is a very special day, and that we have been able to speak to the very top of our industry and the leaders that have influence to shape our future. These are one-to-one interviews spaced throughout the day. And we start with Mark Tanzer, Chief Executive of ABTA. Mark has been Chief Executive since 2015, and over that period, and following the amalgamation with the Federation of Tour Operators, ABTA has consolidated its position as the leading UK association organisation with 1,100 members of tour operators, travel agents and cruise companies. ABTA offers a broad range of services, including financial bonding, health and safety support and business guidance, in addition to wide consumer recognition. Before ABTA, Mark held senior strategy and corporate finance positions in a number of industry sectors. Good morning, Mark, and thanks very much indeed for joining us here on our Leaders' Day as part of our Kickstart the Recovery Forum in association with Jet2holidays. I really appreciate you taking the time. It's been a very busy time for you, so thanks for joining us here. First of all, can I ask you, what are the core topics of concern for ABTA right now?
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Jonathan. Well, the main topic of concern is really helping our members come through, the biggest crisis that has hit the travel industry ever. You and your readers and your viewers don't need me to tell you that effectively travel has been in suspension for over a year now. We had a bit of a stop-start summer, but nothing much really. And then certainly in England, we've been sort of completely shut since March, since the lockdown started. There are some positive signs happening, I would say. Certainly, in England, the domestic lockdown is starting to ease, and we're seeing the reopening of some venues. And we have a target date for international travel to start again, which was laid out in the original roadmap of May the 17th, and that is still the target date, from the Prime Minister's last update. So we hope that we'll be able to see some business coming through, as we get towards the summer. Clearly, having had no Easter and very little business, the summer season is even more important than normal. So a week matters, and trying to get the the whole processes and the policies in line that travel can start again is our priority. At the same time, our members are having still to deal with refunds from before COVID, and so we've got the whole question of refund credit notes and how long they can be issued for. And of course, they've got to be licensed. They need bonding in place with the CAA and with ABTA. So it's a very tough time for our members on all fronts, really, and we're there to help them through that. So that's our biggest concern, I would say. Getting certainly over this next few weeks and months, getting members through the current crisis is our absolute priority.
Absolutely. As far as Northern Ireland is concerned, what have been your calls to our executive, and have you been engaging with our local administration?
Oh yes, we have. We have over 100 members in Northern Ireland, and I've written to the First Minister as well as other bodies to encourage the restart of international travel. We had in the UK, in England, the task force report a couple of weeks ago, which the government set up to look at how you can restart travel safely. There are some steps in the right direction there. Certainly in England, the government's moving away from a blanket approach to a traffic light approach, and recognising that vaccination certificates are going to be an important part of getting people moving again. But there's a lot of detail still missing, not just about individual countries, but about how the system's going to work. There are still quite a lot of obstacles in place, even in the green category of the traffic light, where you need testing when you return, which can be expensive. And once you get into amber, you need to quarantine again. So we have, the industry reaction, in England was that, it was erring on the side of over caution, and that we really want to move as quickly as possible to unrestricted travel, where if a country is seen to be safe, then you don't need quarantining, certainly, and you don't need expensive testing either. So in terms of Northern Ireland, we made the same case that we think there is a way in which travel can reopen safely, that if you look at the different risk profiles of different destinations, you can have different approaches, a mixture of testing, a mixture of quarantining if needed, but as soon as possible, move to unrestricted travel where countries are seen as safe. As yet, we haven't, I think, got a target date for reopening international travel in Northern Ireland. And we were very much encouraging the administration to put that out there. I mean, and everybody in the travel industry knows, you don't start traveling the day after you make an announcement. People want to book, the airlines have to get going, and so you need some lead time, and you need something to aim for. So we will keep up the call for a clear path to when international travel can restart, and that it is done in a way that, as I say, makes it as unrestricted as possible. I think also the other thing we've been asking for, Jonathan, is financial support. Certainly in England, the view is that however travel reopens, it's not going to be an open sesame on day one where everyone can travel. It's going to be a gradual process over the summer, and travel companies, which have been existing without any revenue at all for a year, are going to need some support. We haven't had any sector-specific support for travel, which is incredible to me, given that it's such an important strategic industry and is the first and the most hard hit, really, by any kind of pandemic. But we'll continue to call for that, and we think, the executive in Northern Ireland could look at business rates relief and, again, sector-specific grants for our members and travel companies there. So, we're making calls to government, both on a sort of UK basis, but also on a Northern Ireland specific basis, to really try and give support to the industry through these absolutely critical weeks that are coming up.
Very good. As far as the members are concerned, ABTA members, what have you been doing to support them throughout the pandemic?
Well, we were right at the beginning, it seems ages ago, Jonathan, when we started out last year, we were sort of working very hard with members over refunds and getting the ability for members to issue refund credit notes, because it was obvious that when the entire industry stops altogether at one moment, companies just weren't in a position to be able to refund within 14 days. So we introduced the idea of a refund credit note, which is protected by ABTA or by the CAA, who followed our example, which has been a lifeline for a lot of travel companies to be able to say, look, we want to rebook, we want you to stay with us, don't worry if anything happens to us, you are protected. And those are still in existence. We didn't see this going on for as long as it has, but those have been a very important lifeline. And at the same time, we were lobbying back then for furlough support, salary support, which came through, and government loans. And we've continued the calls for that as the crisis has continued. We are working very closely with the destinations. As you can imagine, we have very good relations with the tourism ministries in all of the main destinations. And on our website, you can see all the latest information about safety, about social distancing measures, but also increasingly about requirements that will be needed if people are going to be traveling to there. So it's really important, I think, if we want to rebuild consumer confidence, that we keep that information flow going, that customers know exactly what's required, what they're going to get when they get there. And because it's a changing picture, that members feel that they have the most up-to-date information possible. We have also, within ABTA, we face in many different, we face towards the members, we face towards politicians, but we also face very much towards the general public. And we have a customer information department that has dealt with 25,000 calls from customers, where some of them, complaints about refunds or delays in refunds, some of them general inquiries. But we think that helps take, pressure off members. We can help mediate if there's a dispute between a member and a customer in a way that is, the most efficient possible. So I'd say we've been been very busy. Of course, sadly, we have lost about 30 members who have failed over the last year because of the pandemic, which is a tragedy for those companies and for the employees, but also their customers who are, expecting refunds, and ABTA will stand behind a lot of those travel arrangements. So we've been operating a full-time claims handling department, dealt with over 40,000 claims, getting customers their money back, which I think is really important for confidence in the sector as a whole, that people know that they can book, and that if something does happen, their monies are protected if they booked a package holiday. So it's been a busy time. Members have been very hungry for information. I think it's a very lonely time out there if you're a travel company. It's you haven't got people coming into the shop. There's no networking because you're not allowed to socially mix, and I think being part of a bigger body of not just a trade association but other companies as well has really mattered. And certainly the weekly and bi-weekly conference calls we have with members have been incredibly popular. We've had over 4,000 people joining those, and the webinars and so forth. So we've tried to keep people involved in ABTA, talking to each other, getting answers to questions over the last year.
I think the most important thing that comes out of that, of course, is communication is key, and you're not in this alone. Of course, you have people in exactly the same situation, and someone that you can turn to and rely on for. And I think that resource, like you say, of updated information for different countries and the protocols that they're going to have to abide by is invaluable, and incredible for not just the trade but the public as well. So fantastic from that point of view. Can I go back to Northern Ireland's relationship from that point of view? What do you think Brexit is going to mean for the travel business and consumers in Northern Ireland?
Well, I think for travel businesses, it's going to be more complicated. I think certainly for businesses in Northern Ireland who want to sell in the Republic of Ireland and vice versa, they've now got to kind of go through a more complicated registration process. When we were part of the EU, if you had your financial protection arrangements in place in any part of the EU, they would be valid across the EU. So that is no longer the case. So if someone in the north of Ireland, in Northern Ireland, who wants to sell in the south, will have to basically either incorporate down there and get registered with CAR, or get an insurance policy that's approved by CAR, the Irish regulator. So there are additional hurdles to be overcome immediately. I think the other big sort of challenge of Brexit for the travel industry generally is posting workers overseas. Previously the Posted Workers Directive allowed you to put travel employees into Europe, still remaining, basically employed here, but able to work anywhere across the EU. That's no longer the case, and we're talking to the government in the UK about how reciprocal arrangements could be put in place, because there are certain travel needs for tour reps and other people to be able to move freely and without restriction in the EU. And although mobility of workers was one of the key reasons why people wanted to have Brexit, it's still a need for the travel industry. So we think on the business front, we need to sort of try and move forward with those. I think what we were pleased about was that access seems to be pretty much unimpeded, for all modes on a sort of point-to-point basis, which is obviously really important, that we can actually, fly into or take a ferry or a cruise into Europe. And some of the consumer protections, like the e-hit card, are being replaced by an alternative. So pleased to see that. There are still other consumer sort of rights and protections that were available when we were in the EU, that like roaming charges, that we haven't yet managed to replace. So we'll do our best to reinstate, from a customer point of view, those protections they had, as well as from a business point of view, to make it as sort of seamless as possible. But there's no doubt that it is going to be more complicated than it was when we were within the EU.
course, it's to the benefit of both parties to sort it out as quickly as possible. You know, not just the UK, but Europe as well. The reliance on the UK tourist and the money that brings.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's a sort of broader point there, Jonathan, which is about, you know, the four nations within the UK, as well as about the UK versus the EU. You know, there are all sorts of, you know, good reasons, you know, political and emotional, why devolved powers make sense. And, you know, it's above my pay grade to decide what the right is there. But from a travel point of view, the more closely things can be harmonized and standardized, the easier it is, because as soon as you have a divergence of policies, you have to monitor them, you have checks, you have, you know, even border checks, which obviously in Northern Ireland you want to stay well away from these. And if the politicians and the industry can kind of really encourage, you know, systems to be as harmonized and as similar as possible, that's in everybody's interest, you know, the customers, the passengers, as well as the industry. And I think we're at a moment now, you know, where we really need, if you take the reopening of travel, to try and get a common approach across the UK, and then see how things like vaccination certificates and so forth can be worked on a European basis, so we don't have 28 different systems to negotiate as a travel industry.
No, absolutely. The frustration, of course, that we have at the present time is because we don't have that joined up approach. You know, the announcement of the 17th of May doesn't exactly apply to Northern Ireland at the present time. We're still waiting for our opening relaxation time for international travel, and hopefully that will come sooner rather than later. So yeah, let's all get together and make that happen. Travel companies are quite rightly focused on the recovery of their business and the sector right now, but there's also an important sustainability agenda as well. What are your or ABTA's thoughts on this?
You're absolutely right, Jonathan. You know, before, you know, anybody had heard the word COVID, you know, the big challenge, I would say, for the travel industry was sustainability. And I know when we had our convention, you know, before COVID arrived, it was a major topic, and the room was full because people realized this is now a big business issue. And, you know, we had the Extinction Rebellion, you know, it's not just carbon and the environmental, it's the social footprint of travel that I think we really have to be very conscious of and have a plan to address the, you know, the costs that go with travel. We published last year a Tourism for Good report, which, you know, says this is what tourism does that is good, you know, not just for, you know, people's spiritual and psychological well-being there, you know, which is really important now, but economically here and in the destinations, you know, there are a lot of places where, you know, eliminating poverty means jobs, and jobs mean tourism, because those are the only jobs around. And so I think travel and tourism have a really important role to play in that way. But there is a, you know, a cost to it. So the question is, how do you maintain the good and minimize the costs? We are part of sustainable aviation, together with you know, the aviation companies and others, to really try and drive towards a low carbon aviation future. We also within ABTA have a separately run but wholly owned subsidiary called Travel Life, and that looks at the whole supply chain that travel companies have. So the hotels they use, it audits the hotels, not just again in terms of their energy or environmental footprint, but their social as well. Do employees have contracts, so on and so forth, so that, you know, companies can say with confidence, we are managing our supply chain, and the customers can say, I'm happy to go with that company and stay at that hotel because I know that it is doing its, you know, it's conducting its tourism business in an ethical and sustainable way. Those challenges won't have gone away because of COVID, and you know, when travel comes back, which it certainly will, because there's a huge demand for it, even more now that people have been forced into abstinence. You know, we have to address those. So we're you know, we're carrying on the work. You know, a lot of hotels have been shut. They're now starting to reopen, and we're working with them again to get them audited and to show that travel can be done sustainably.
Very good. You're in constant contact with government, of course, and you're wanting to see more clarity on us moving forward. This whole week has been about giving confidence to the agents moving forward. We're still in a bit of a holding pattern, as I like to call it, until we get a wee bit more of that. Can you give us a wee bit of a message, just a parting message to our travel agents here, our the travel industry in Northern Ireland, as to a bit of confidence moving forward?
Well, for sure. You know, as I say, I think, you know, the success of the vaccination program in the UK is giving us the opportunity to see travel restarting. And I think, you know, a lot of things haven't really gone to plan from a government and a health management point of view, but I think the vaccination program has been a success, and it seems, you know, the results of it are evident. You know, the infection rate is down, the deaths rate is down, thank goodness, and the hospitalizations are down, all of which are the sort of bedrock on which we'll be able to start moving again. As I say, I think the pent-up demand is huge for travel. I think people who have, you know, not just been forced into lockdown, but forced to stay within the UK will really be looking as soon as they can to travel again. And I think the fact that, you know, initially it will be more complicated. You know, different countries will have different requirements about what you need if you're going in, and what the kind of sort of social distancing rules are, and so forth. And wherever, you know, we find complexity, that is good for travel agents, because that's where people will think, you know what, I'm not confident to do this on my own. I really want somebody who has the expertise and whom I trust, but also whom I can turn to if things don't turn out quite as planned, if there's a late change or something happens. And I think that's really where travel agents are at their brilliant best, to be honest, is really helping when things don't go according to plan, and where there are sort of complexities. And I think we're definitely in for a period of, you know, rebuilding customer confidence, and I think travel agents have a huge role to play in that. And I think, you know, they will, certainly we at ABTA will be driving people to book with an ABTA member and to book with confidence with an ABTA member. And I think, you know, that's where the customers will be heading. How quickly the restart will gain momentum, and how long it will take to get back to where we were before COVID is a guessing game. But the direction, I think, is indisputable. That's the way we're going to go. And you know, it's been a long haul up to now, but I hope you know, we'll start to see some light that will give people encouragement to really push on now and try and get back to normal. That's
terrific. Can I thank you again for taking the time? I know you're a very busy man. I know ABTA have been very busy over the last 14 months. Lots of demands and lots of changes in the organisation, and trying to deal with different demands every day. We're having, of course, our big travel trade event on the 24th and 25th of August. And I know you've been over before, but it's been a while. So I'd like to formally invite you to come back over to that at that occasion. Hopefully you can join us at that point.
That's extremely kind of you. I will be delighted to join you, and I will put it in my diary now, and hope to see you then.
That's great. Thanks very much indeed, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Much appreciated.
Join us later today at 12 o'clock for our next interview with Julia Lobo Saeed, CEO from the Advantage Group. I look forward to seeing you then.